Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you happen to be right now. We're excited that you're joining us here on this live stream. My name is Brian. It's my wife, Melanie, and we serve as the global short-term coordinators with WorldVenture. That means that we get the privilege of working with people who serve under 1 year anywhere in the world. Liz and Sabrina went out on our Pathfinder program. Pathfinders is for people serving for 1 month to 1 year, and they go as volunteers to serve. They stick their foot in the water, so their toe in the water, so to speak, of missions and see what God might have for their lives and how he might want to work in and through their lives. Now, Mel and I do this because we are big believers that God wants to work in your life before he ever works through your life. One of our life verses is Colossians 1:28. We proclaim him, admonishing everyone and teaching everyone with all wisdom, that we may present everyone complete in Christ. And our heart's desire as we work with people serving overseas is to see them take the next step in their journey with Jesus, no matter what that is, because everybody's at a different spot in their journey. So we're going to have a great time hearing about their experiences. There is a chat available. If you have questions that you want to ask us or you want to ask Sabrina and Liz, you are more than welcome to stick them in the chat, and we'll be watching those and bring those out as we can.
We are so excited that you guys have joined us and joined this conversation about Pathfinders, and to actually hear real life experiences of two girls who have just had a remarkable time in the places that they have served. I would love to introduce the world to Sabrina and to Elizabeth, but we call her Liz because we love her a lot. And they have been serving in our Pathfinder program in 2025. Liz went for 6 months to Southeast Asia, but Sabrina went for 3 months to Japan, and both had phenomenal and incredible experiences in how they served, what they chose to do as their vehicle of how they wanted to share about Jesus. And we invited them into this conversation because we want them to be able to tell you all about their experiences. They both got back right before Christmas, which is so fun because, well, Southeast Asia is pretty hot. So coming back in time for snow for Liz was pretty amazing. And for Sabrina to be able to come back and be able to hang out with her family over Christmas was such a gift to both girls. But how I would love for them to introduce themselves to you guys is, girls, can I just ask you, let's start with Liz. Liz, how did you come to know Jesus?
Yeah, I did not grow up a Christian. I did not grow up with faith in Christ. So when I came to college, I met these people who became my really good friends, and they absolutely loved Jesus. And so we just had a whole bunch of really cool conversations, you know, the classic college stories of staying up till midnight talking about life and what is your purpose and all of these questions. And so that got me thinking. And at the end of my freshman year of college, I was really praying a lot to this God that I had heard about from these friends, but that I didn't believe in myself. And I ended up taking a long road trip from Alaska down to Colorado. And on that trip, I read the Bible and I saw God's creation. It's an incredible drive. If you ever get the chance to do it, I highly recommend driving from Alaska to the lower 48. But it was, God just showed me who he was. Like Romans 1 talks about his glory is revealed in creation. Psalm 19 says that the skies declare the glory of God. And yeah, so just reading his word and being in his creation, and the Lord called me, and I wanted to give my life to him. So I got baptized the winter of my sophomore year.
Awesome. How about you, Sabrina? How did you come to faith?
Yeah, so I was really blessed to grow up in a godly Christian home where my parents and my grandparents, both sides, discipled me a lot, and a church where I would go to the weekly Awana program and memorize scripture and stuff. So I was blessed to be able to receive that. And one of my earliest memories of talking seriously to God was when I think I was around 4 years old, when I remember just getting to a quiet place by myself and just humbling myself before God and confessing that I was a sinner and that I'd heard the gospel message presented enough at church and through my parents reading the Bible with me that I knew Jesus was the only way to heaven, and that his death and resurrection was sufficient to cover my sin and make me right with God. So I just remember, I still have that memory of kneeling down behind this really large chair in my grandparents' house one day, just getting away from everybody and like making that decision with God. And I remember after that moment, like running to my mom and my grandma and saying, "Oh, I got saved." And so that moment was just, I can always look back to that and think that's when God met me and had started a relationship with him. And then it grew from there, just to learning what a daily walk with God looks like. And that's been a lot of ups and downs, but God's been faithful to help me stay on the right track. So yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. And to have a memory of 4, like I don't have memories of when I was 4. So what a gift that God gave you to have that, you know, behind your grandparents' chair, to have that moment when you said yes to Jesus. So I am curious, because this is, you know, we have somebody who came to faith as a college student and somebody as a 4-year-old. What in the process of you coming to Jesus ignited within you a desire for missions? Because missions is a weird step. Like, this is not normal for normal people to go to college, graduate with an engineering degree, and go, yes, to Jesus, I'm going to go to Southeast Asia.
Well, and that's the other thing I'm loving, before you guys jump in, is, you know, people think about short-termers or people going into missions and they went to Bible college and they got a theology degree or they got a missions degree. And Liz went to Colorado School of the Mines with an engineering degree, and Sabrina graduated with a degree in harp performance.
Yeah.
You know, so these are not missions focused degrees. So how did God lead you towards missions? Liz, why don't you jump in first?
Yeah, I think when I was little, I had like heard of missionaries, and I thought they were like these crazy people. It like didn't make any
Not
sense.
wrong.
Yeah. But after I came to faith, I got to meet a couple of missionaries and who had come back to the States and were like giving updates to churches and stuff. And so that like really sparked an interest in missions. And then I had the opportunity to go to Norway for a short-term discipleship program. And I got to hear people pray in their own language, and that like God used that to like ignite a love and a passion for the nations. And so, yeah, when I came back from that Norway trip, I was really praying about whether the Lord wanted me to go. And he opened those doors. So I was super excited.
So, Sabrina, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it was actually my family's own ministry we had that my dad started, called Word Outreach International. So I grew up with just constantly being exposed to missions since I was 3 years old when my parents took me on a mission trip to South Korea. And like from there, I just went on some trips, and then also saw my dad and my mom traveling a lot together to when my dad would speak at churches, he would preach and do like marriage seminars and stuff in different places with my mom. And then we also had a hospitality ministry at home, and I witnessed my dad financially supporting missionaries and loving on them and going to visit them. And then my mom just having this amazing gift of hospitality for lots of missionaries that would come through our home over the years, and just spending time with them and their kids. And so that made a big impression on me. Oh, my parents are holding something up as like very valuable. They have a high respect for serving other people overseas. So that made a big impression on me. And then kind of like Liz talked about, going on a trip where God kind of changes you. That experience was for me when I went on a trip to South Korea with my parents. I was around 11 years old, and I helped at a Word of Life English camp in Pyeongtaek, near the military base in Korea. And it was that experience that God tugged on my heart and saying, prompted me to commit my life for mission work wherever he called me to go. And about a year later, some good missionary friends of ours from Japan visited our house again, and I was finally old enough to start understanding Japan's need for the gospel, and God started using that to change my interest to study Japanese culture and just learn about it through that family. And they've been some of my biggest mentors over the years about considering mission work in Japan. So yeah.
Oh,
That's so cool.
that's so great to hear. You know, seeing the example of somebody else, trying it yourself, going. But there's a big difference between I'm going on a week-long trip with a bunch of friends or with my family, and I'm going to sign up and go for 3 or 6 months somewhere
By myself,
on my own
as a girl.
So as you guys started considering your time overseas, what was most intimidating, or what made you most anxious as you were thinking, should I really follow through with this? Am I going to do this or not? What were some of those things that you had to overcome in your own life as you prepared to go? Sabrina, why don't you start first?
I think I had a lot more excitement than anxiety, just because I waited so long to get back to Japan. I got to go my first time when I was 18 years old, and that was just a little over a week with my parents, and I stayed with that same missionary family in Kyoto. And then it was like 7 years from then until this past year when I went back, and over the whole time I was just constantly just waiting, like, when, Lord, when do I get to go back? And just waiting for that time through all of college and everything for that open door to finally arrive. And then when it did, I was just so excited. I really wasn't thinking about issues or like challenges. Really, the only thing I think that potentially made me slightly anxious was thinking about, I'll have to raise so much money on the American side, not the Japan side. So, you know, as I saw God provide in that way, I think God builds your faith by responding to prayers you pray before you even get to that place. And so I think I was able to go with a lot of confidence. And then when challenges did come up once in a while, I had that, I guess, spiritual muscle built of like, hey, God has this. You don't need to worry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love the spiritual muscle already built. I love that.
good.
What about you, Liz? Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, I was also really excited. I think more excited than nervous. There were a lot of unknowns for me. Like, I had never been anywhere in Southeast Asia. And so it was a whole new world that I was going to. But yeah, I was super excited. I had an amazing community here at home that surrounded me with prayer and with encouragement. And yeah, I think, I was just super excited to see what the Lord had.
Cool.
I love that.
Just as a reminder, if you have questions for Liz or Sabrina, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. If you want more information about the Pathfinder program, there's a QR code up in the corner. You can scan that as you continue to listen to these gals share. So you excited, you got your support raised, you're jumping on a plane, you land in Southeast Asia. Liz, what was that like to finally be there? What tell us about those first days and those emotions that you experienced when you arrived.
Smells, senses, your 5 senses screaming.
Yeah, there were a lot of smells in Southeast Asia where I was at. A lot of people drive around on little motorcycles. It's like a cross between a motorcycle and a moped, and you get to smell everything when you're riding one of those. So yeah, there's a lot to get used to with that. And the traffic around the airport was like crazy. Everyone was like asking if they could help me, and I didn't understand the language, and so I was like, I don't know. So there was a lot in the first couple of days. I got sick. That was the only time the whole trip that I had like food poisoning or something. So the first couple of days were like, there was a lot of stuff happening that I was like, wow, okay,
What have I done?
I'm here. I made it. I'm in it. Yeah, but again, I got to meet a couple of people that became my really good friends over the course of 6 months. And yeah, there was just a lot of excitement of like, I'm finally here. Like, God, you asked me to do this, and I'm here. And so yeah, it was, even through all of those like weird ups and downs, it was still, I knew that God was in control. And yeah, I was like, I have 6 months. It's not like a week where, you know, half of my week is now taken up with being sick and I only have another half. So yeah, it was really good.
What was it like for you, Sabrina, those first moments of finally, after 7 years, your feet are here? It's not for it's not for a week. I'm back. I'm here doing this thing that I have been plotting and planning with Jesus for 7 years. And what was that like for you?
It felt very fulfilling.
Uh-huh.
And in a way, just after studying the language for a long time and constantly speaking it in American context, now getting to be in real Japan, authentic Japan, and using the language immediately as soon as I got to the airport. I'm going through customs in Japanese. I'm buying my bus ticket in Japanese. Like everything is immediately Japanese. Like let's just turn the switch on. So that was exciting. It was kind of strange because I didn't get any sleep on the airplane, and it was over a 20-hour, so I was up for over 24 hours by the time I got to Japan. And so I was having to do a lot on very little sleep. And I was like, I think God really supported me in that. But I just remember like getting on the bus once I got through the airport, and we're driving to Tokyo, and I just felt such like just happiness and peace. Like I'm here. Tokyo, it's very, I think in a way, Japan is quite similar to the Western world because it's, a first world country that have just a very nice, convenient, clean, organized structure of society. Their train system is amazing. Their food is wonderful. Like everything just it didn't feel like a super huge culture shock environment wise. I think the culture shock is more deeper, subtle layers that you find out as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, the first thing I fell in love with was probably like the food as I started eating Japanese food. So yeah.
Right. What's not to love? I was thinking when you were talking on our first call after you arrived in Japan, I was like, man, this has got to feel so surreal for Sabrina. Like to plot and to plan for something for so long, and now you're here and you're doing it. And like you said, like we try and prepare you guys when we're doing our calls with you before you go, that like saltwater isn't magical. You're not like going to get on a plane and everything's just going to kaboom, saltwater fixes everything. But there was that flip that switched for you, Sabrina, is like, I'm now no longer in the English. Now I'm doing the thing that for 7 years I've been planning and learning, because you were so intentional about learning language before you went, versus the rest of us, like Liz, like you just arrive in this foreign place with no, like it's like a whole different planet when you go someplace where you don't know the language, you don't know the experience. Yeah. So surreal. That was the word that kept coming to mind for you, Sabrina.
And I love that you both were in unreached people groups. In Southeast Asia, that's the focus of the work there is reaching unreached people groups. Sabrina's in Japan, and most people don't realize this, but less than 2% of Japanese population are Christ followers. And so it's very much an unreached people group. But you guys went there with very different focuses on how God was going to use your skills and your gifts and your background. So Sabrina, why don't you share with everybody a little bit about what your background is and how God used that there in Japan in your 3 months there.
Yeah, so my background is I am a musician, and God called me to play the harp when I was 6 years old. And he put me in a family where my grandparents introduced the harp to me, and I started studying, took lessons, and brought me all the way through graduate studies in harp. And so as a kid, as I started, my first place of really performing on the harp was at church. And I began to see God open doors for ministry, of how not earning money, not, doing something ambitious according to worldly standards, but just blessing people with harp music at church, at nursing homes, and those kind of places, alongside the academic stuff I was also pursuing, that a lot of people came up afterwards of those ministry contexts came up afterwards with a lot of just like gratefulness and like just so much joy that they got to hear the harp, and I was seeing God bless that a lot. And so as I was thinking about ministry, I kept asking the question, well, how can God use the harp for overseas mission work? How's it going to look like? You know, the harp is difficult to transport, and, you know, it's a classical instrument. So it's a little different than like a worship band scenario. So I was wondering how God would bring that together. And then he gave me a vision for using the harp performing in church and outreach concerts, and to use my platform as a harpist to actually share my faith and my testimony during a harp concert, which I started practicing doing when I was in Illinois for graduate studies. So I would sometimes share my own compositions and then speak about how those compositions were inspired by my faith, and I would get to share a Bible verse. And being able to be a performer gives you that freedom to say what you want to say, because you're giving a service to the audience, and so you have some level of respect there to be able to share about your story. So God had me sort of practice doing that in the States for several years, and then he gave me this vision for doing that in Japan as a way to draw people to hear about the Lord through music. And then through a whole other story of meeting a Japanese family in America and teaching them harp lessons, he also gave me a desire to want to teach the harp in Japan and use that as a way to build relationships. So I had all these thoughts in my head before I was starting this internship, and then God answered the crazy prayer of being able to get a harp in Japan and somehow using that in ministry. So, and he not only provided one harp, but 2 harps in 2 totally different locations in Japan. So I'd like to share just one photo of my first harp concert about 2 weeks after I arrived in Japan. And I'll go ahead and pull that up. So yeah, this was at a church called Shimonoseki Christ Bible Church. The missionaries who started this church have been in Japan for over 40 years, and they're supported by my home church, Thomas Road Baptist Church in Virginia. And this is the first harp concert I gave in Japan. I shared a program in music. I shared some classical pieces. I played some pieces I'd written and some hymns. And then I shared my testimony and the full gospel message in Japanese at this concert. And about 60 people attended, and they said over a third of those people were non-believers who were coming to church just to hear the harp. Cool. So God, that very night, I feel like God just really confirmed this desire and blessed it. And I could see that it was a blessing also to the church, getting to be able to it wasn't just about my interaction with the audience, but what was going to happen afterward, of those relationships starting because someone came to church. And so then now after I leave, the people who are there can like hopefully continue those relationships. So that's something really cool that I saw God do. And I was able to use the harp for church ministry as well up in Miyako in the northern part of Japan, where I stayed for 6 weeks, and do other concerts there as well. So I got to do outreach concerts at, this was a elementary school that's not a Christian school, but I put together a harp presentation and talked about the history, construction of the harp, and then also performed some pieces, and then shared a small bit of my testimony through a song that I wrote called Fearless. And that Fearless song has a Bible verse, Psalm 27 verse 1, that talks about who should I fear, because God is with me and I don't need to be afraid. So I use that as sort of a testimony. And there's limited things that you can say in public spaces in Japan, but I was kind of learning how to do that there. I also performed at 2 different senior living community centers and kind of gave similar programs there. And then the last concert I performed was at church at the Miyako Megumi Bible Church up in Miyako, where I was serving. And while I was there, I helped provide the worship music through the harp. each Sunday. And then at the end of my time there, I gave a concert at church. And we had 20 people come, and several people, over 5 people there, and maybe it's 9 people actually came who were non-believers to this concert, where I got to share the full gospel story as well. So yeah, those were some exciting moments where God just fulfilled that dream that I had just been thinking about and made it reality.
I love how God takes and uses our gifts, our passions, our stories for his kingdom. And, God put that in Sabrina's heart as a 6-year-old. And she
I was
developed
getting
her.
goosebumps looking at those pictures with those little Japanese children standing around her elbows, looking at this heart, thinking about Sabrina at 6 and this seed that God planted in you. And I wonder what the seeds were that God was planting in those children around your elbow, looking at this harp. Like, it's so cool. It's like goosebump moments,
Or the seeds that God's planting in the hearts of those who are watching this live stream.
Yeah,
how has God gifted you? How has he called you? How does he want you to use your gifts and skills for him? Before Liz jumps in, just one little plug here. Right as Sabrina went to Japan, she dropped her first album.
Yes.
It's called Resurrection.
Oh my gosh.
It's available on
Spotify.
Spotify. And where else is it available?
Apple Music and YouTube.
Apple Music and YouTube.
I actually have it playing in the background a lot while I'm working. It's just beautiful music. There's some scripture and some testimony in it as well. So look up Sabrina Vaughan Resurrection.
If you
where you listen to music.
If you happen to be in like a engineering degree at the School of the Mines and you need some good study music, I know a girl who has an album that dropped, and it's pretty fantastic for study music.
So, Liz, you studied engineering.
Yeah.
Oh, my word. Yeah. And now you're in an unreached people group in Southeast Asia, and you didn't take a harp with you. What did life look like for you? What was ministry for you there in Southeast Asia among an unreached people group with your engineering degree?
Well, it was kind of like, forget the engineering degree. I didn't do any engineering while I was there. I did a lot of language learning, which was a totally like different part of my brain, which was super fun. I loved learning, and that was awesome. But yeah, I think the skill that I have that I used there was saying yes to things and being willing to go on an adventure to a swimming spot and meeting the people there that are like selling food, and that'll take you out on a little boat, and so you can go on a little boat ride around, and just like building relationships with these people. We went to a weaving village where these people, these ladies, they weave, and that's like a tradition that they've had for a really long time. And they make these beautiful cloths, and I got to go learn how to weave, which was super fun. But yeah, over the 6 months I was there, we continually went to this one lady's house, and towards the end of my time there, it was super cool. God answered prayers, and we got to share like the story from Abraham all the way to Jesus with these ladies who were, when I first got there, were like super closed off to the gospel. So yeah, it was just, I think saying yes to things and being willing to be in like slightly uncomfortable situations where you like, you're eating food that is like not really your favorite, but you don't want to say no because that's rude, and just being in slightly uncomfortable situations that turn out to be like beautiful friendships. And the more that you go to this one place and the more you speak to these people, the more comfortable at least I felt going to those places. And so that was super sweet to get to be there for such a long period of time and get to actually build those relationships and learn language from these women. And so that was really cool.
Love that. And I do like what you just said, like when you're someplace like Sabrina or Liz and you're there for longer than just a week, your brain is switching to I can do anything for a week. Like I can put up with it. Or you might get sick and you're like, man, I've only got 3 more days, But when you have a long period of time, when you're invested in some place, your brain switches to, I'm in this, I want to learn this, I want to move within the world of which we're going. But what you said, Liz, and both of you girls, and us too, as we've traveled, not only living overseas, but as we've traveled ourselves, we can't just always talk about all the good things and the excitement and it's so cool. Let's talk about, just be real for a minute. What was something that was hard during your experience, and how was it that God met you in those moments to help you overcome that hard spot?
For me, I think the language barrier was a really hard thing. It was hard because when I wanted to talk to these people and like hear their stories and get to know them, because they have really cool stories. But yeah, not being able to understand them, not being able to ask those questions was hard. And then also there was like an aspect of loneliness that like technology was amazing. I could call home and I could call friends, and that was super nice. But it was like when you're surrounded by a language that you don't understand and there's nobody else there who speaks English, there were some challenging times. But yeah, I think that brought me closer to the Lord, like through prayer. He was the one that I could talk to and I could lean on and read the Bible, and God was such a huge comfort in those moments. So yeah,
I remember telling us on one of our calls, you were like, the loneliness has produced a spot for me to invite Jesus to come and sit with me. And I'm learning more of a sweetness, of an intimacy, that I'm not lonely anymore because I'm with him every single day. And I was really struck by that. Like when God strips everything else away, he always provides himself in really special ways that you wouldn't have that opportunity to encounter if you were here in our country and surrounded by all the things that we are, sometimes distractions. So yeah. I love that for sharing that. Yep. I love that. What about you, Sabrina? What was something hard, and how did Jesus help get you over that moment of hard or that situation of hard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say a couple of things come to mind. The first thing is also language related. For me, I feel like the Lord was helping me to get to this next level of this immersion feeling of always needing to be on, always needing to people know, oh, you speak Japanese. Well, now let's speak Japanese for like 5 hours. and let's like, you don't need to speak English, And so I knew ahead of time that it was probably going to feel a little overwhelming at times. So I kind of prepared myself for that. But it is different because most of my interactions have been in America. So, sometimes I'll revert back to English once in a while, and it gives my brain a bit of a break. But when I found myself a lot of different situations in Japan where I was just around Japanese people, or in contexts where the few English speaking people were there were doing Japanese only for the sake of the context. So it was teaching my brain how to just like endure and persevere and like just not give up. Like I found moments, okay, my brain has literally given out now and I'm still being asked to keep speaking. And so I found those moments of like pushing over that next limit of what I thought, like, this is my limit. I can't go anymore. And then God just helping me to do a little more than that. So like that was teaching me, I guess, endurance, like mental endurance, and also the importance of rest too. Like, okay, once it's been a long day of your brain being on all the time, you need to really like be intentional about just like shutting everything off and like getting your rest so that you can come back to it with energy the next day. So yeah, that was a challenge that God helped me work through and just give myself grace. Like,
and I just want to speak to that because like you were so intentional about, on my time off or my quiet moments. And what maybe some people don't realize is every living situation is different. Liz was able to be in one spot. She was with one family, a host family, and there was rhythms that they were able to develop in 6 months. Sabrina traveled around. She was in different spots in different locations, sometimes with people, sometimes she was housed in churches, which is great because she had quiet space to shut off until 2 teams from Singapore invaded her space.
Yeah.
She no longer had quiet time. And so I just want to say, I saw God meet you there, Sabrina, in those moments, because my mommy heart was all of a sudden like, what do you mean her quiet space is being invaded by strangers? Like, what danger, Will Rogers? But you were like, I'm okay. I can do, if I need some, I'll go down to the baths and I'll just have some quiet time down at the baths or whatever. So it was really sweet to watch you take that journey of just saying, okay, Lord, whatever. Okay, whatever. And he was very quick to restore unto you what you were giving out for him. So that was
and I think
cool.
those are such great lessons. And I think you both picked up on that because we've heard it from Liz as well. We live in the States in such a fast-paced, frenetic society. And Tokyo itself can get that way as well, just the life and culture in Tokyo. But God designed Sabbath for a reason. He modeled rest, and for you guys to see the importance of that and to be able to put some of those rhythms in while you were there is so good. So I'm just curious, just for fun, whenever we go to a different culture, as much as even Sabrina studied Japanese and studied Japanese culture and all these things ahead of time, we always have humorous culture moments.
Yes, I love this portion of the conversation.
So I wonder if you guys would be willing to share at least just one humorous story of culture or something kind of unexpected that happened while you were there, and that just made you laugh or giggle or smile, or as you reflect back now, maybe you didn't laugh in the moment, but now that you got some distance from it, you're able to laugh. So tell us a funny culture story.
I'll let you go first, Liz. I need to take a moment.
Okay. Yeah. One of the fun foods that I got to try, it's this really like thick, gloppy thing. And the way that they serve it is they take like the end of 2 spoons and they just like go like this, and then they like pick it up and then they put it on your bowl. And serving it like looked like fun. And so I was like super excited to try it. But then the house that I was at, the lady who made this meal, she's super nice. And she gave me like this super big portion of it, doing this spinny thing with the spoons. And it was like impressive that she got so much on her spoon. But I don't exactly know how to describe the texture. The taste, it kind of doesn't taste like much, but the texture is like snot. This is really the best way to describe it. So I had this giant portion of this snot stuff, and I was like trying to just like swallow it down as best as I could. And then she just wanted to keep adding more. And I'm like, I'm good. Really, it's okay. So I think that's like a humor story, but it was such an incredible thing to be in a place where people have so little. And when you go over to their house, they want to give you so much. Like stood out the entire time I was there. Every house I went to, the people were so kind and so hospitable. But yeah, the snot food was
it's not great.
Yeah, we've had it. We know.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch him do it, but it takes time to get it down.
Later, like there were times where we had it. It was like 1 week where we had it like 3 times, and all of the people that lived there were like, "Yeah, we don't really like it either. We just."
Why are you serving it to me?
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
How about you, Sabrina?
Yeah, for me it was rather unexpected. So Japan is famous for a lot of, amazing tourist attractions. And one of those things is we call onsen, which is a public bath. And we don't really have this concept in Western culture because we're very used to private bathing. But Japan is Japan has its own bath culture that they've had for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so if you're going to embrace Japanese community and, really get close to your Japanese friends, you need to probably at some point step out in courage and go to onsen with them. So I guess I didn't think much about it, but I maybe had this like subconscious like decision already in my mind. I'm not going to do onsen this time. Like I wasn't really planning on going at all. I was like, I'm not quite ready for that. Maybe one day later, if I move to Japan, I'll take the plunge, so to speak. But it happened. I was hanging out with this sweet Christian girl from Tsukuba Grace Chapel, where I was staying at this church in Tsukuba. Her name is Saki, and we started hanging out a lot and just having fun together. And so one day we were planning to go sightseeing somewhere, and then the weather turned really bad, and so it was like the night before, and so we're like texting each other like, oh, what should we do? And so the first thing she suggests, well, let's go to do onsen. And like she sends me like, oh, this onsen is really great, like she's really wanting to go do this together. And like she would have been fine if I said no, but I just felt like for her sake and wanting to strengthen the friendship that I should just go for it and like not think about it, not overthink it. So I was like, okay, let's go. Yeah. Like, I don't know what I just committed myself to, but like we'll we'll make it somehow. So she picked me up in her car, we go, and like I was definitely nervous, but it helped to go with another girl my age who's a Christian, who's like, I never would have gone with an American my first time, but I helped go with a Japanese person because it felt like just different. Like, it's okay. Like, okay, I'm going to become Japanese now. I'm going to stop being American for a moment and just like let go of all of my preconceptions about bathing, I guess.
Yeah.
And
we went after the initial shock. I actually started to enjoy it, and I felt very relaxed afterwards. Like, it felt very like good. The hot water was really nice. We had like a meal together, and I feel like after that, our friendship was really strengthened as a result of that. And like, I felt closer to her as far as, oh, I've just like kind of really in a very vulnerable way stepped into your culture that I wasn't expecting to, but I felt like I just did it, and then it turned out really like a positive experience. And I'm thankful that God gave me the opportunity. So it turned, at first it was shocking and weird, and then it became like, oh, it's okay. Like, you're just embracing the culture.
And what Sabrina's not telling you is that Japanese bathing is you go and there's no clothes, so it's naked bath with people of the same sex. Which was not something we experienced here in the States.
I'm so proud of you, Sabrina.
And we're very proud of you, Sabrina, for doing that.
I was encouraged on my first trip to Japan to go do it with one of our first termers. And I was like, wait, what? We're doing what now? And I'm a 50-year-old menopausal woman. And I'm thinking, this man is the only one who gets to see that portion of me. And so I love my best friend, actually. She was like, Mel, here's the thing, what you just said, Sabrina, for the sake of the gospel, would you be willing to do it? And I was like,
I'm already a Christian, but I mean,
right. But just that experience,
for
would you be willing to, what are you willing to do? And I'm like, I feel like, Lisa, this is not an okay question because I would rather eat snot than do the naked bathing. But I love that. What you did and what you said was the intimacy that comes is the relationship builder for authenticity for later conversations. And so you did that, and you stepped into a place that this normal American was really struggling with, and you became an example to say, you know what, if Jesus is asking me, I'm going to do it. And he asked me in the form of my friend. And I'm so grateful that I took the challenge to be able to eat snot for 3 times or go naked bath, whatever.
For the cause of Christ.
For the cause.
Thanks,
girls. That was awesome.
That was great. Thank you for sharing. We're starting to close in on the top of the hour.
We are.
So I just have a couple more questions for you. One is, what is something that God taught you that you're wanting to make sure gets incorporated into your life here in the States, or
Such a
should
good
God take you
question.
back overseas again, even in that?
Yeah, I love the question.
I think for me, kind of what I was saying earlier, like there were times where like I was in a conversation and I don't know what's going on, and so then I turned to prayer, and that like that muscle, I really want to keep that muscle strong, and like turning to prayer in conversations, even if I understand what's going on, just praying for the people that are talking and people that are listening, and that Lord God would be working in those moments.
So good.
Yeah, I want to keep that.
That's good.
I think for me, God showed me the power of just being someone's friend. So there are a lot of moments. I remember the trip where I also struggled with some loneliness, which is weird because I was like constantly around people a lot, but it's one thing to be around lots of strangers all the time and just doing things, and then, having this inner, like, oh, you feel kind of like you're excited about what you're doing, but then you also struggle with a little bit of loneliness. So in the past, God's taught me how to sort of give that to him, and then the best antidote for loneliness is going to go be someone's friend and go serve someone and reach out to someone, and then someone who is also as lonely, and you can be a friend to them. So I found little opportunities throughout the trip where I was getting to do that with other younger single people my age that I would meet at. Sometimes it was spontaneously, just meeting a stranger and talking, like initiating a conversation with someone on the bullet train. Because so in Japanese culture, if you're not aware, like people just don't like suddenly strike up conversations with strangers. Like it's very quiet, like mind your own business. So it's like really unusual if someone turns to you like, hey, so what's your name on the train or whatever. Like they just don't do that. But there are a couple times where God prompted me to just do that and just be, not anti-cultural, but just be American
Countercultural.
countercultural for the sake of a relationship. And then he always brought such positive fruit out of that, and the spiritual satisfaction of just stumbling through the language, and then through that person being like, oh, this American person wants to talk to me, and then sometimes we turn in conversations about God and stuff. So I think he just taught me that lesson again of how powerful it is to befriend someone. And especially the last location I was at in northern Japan, there was a girl that I met, and I met through some missionaries, a non-believer who was just graduating from high school. And, it's a really small town, so there's not a whole lot of young people there. And so we met, and I went out to coffee with her one day with another mutual friend. And then after we had coffee together, I left the station where we had met and started walking back to the church. And then I got a text from her because we had exchanged line info. And she said, she reached out to me and said, do you have more time today? I want to talk more. And I was like, whoa, blown away. Like now someone, like it always seems to be, we're the ones initiating, especially in Japanese culture. But now she was reaching out to me and saying, hey, can we spend more time together? And I realized, wow, like God's just like brought someone along for me to like be spiritually stewarding how I'm loving on somebody, and like consciously thinking about how to spend time with them. And so that led to lots of more times of hanging out with her while I was in that city and getting to share about the Lord with her at different points. And so, I think that's what God has taught me that I should probably continue doing in America, to continue building friendship with people.
Okay, so here's this is one thing that we always do with both our first termers and our Pathfinders. So the girls are very aware that we're going to do this. Liz, 3 adjectives about your Pathfinder experience.
Do Sabrina first.
Okay, Sabrina, you just got the ball thrown to you. 3 adjectives.
I'd say fulfilling.
Yeah.
Fulfilling. Like moments just felt like, oh, I had a lot of deep peace where I was at, what I was doing,
Mhm.
the warm fellowship I was having with other Japanese believers in their language, like it felt like, yeah, really peaceful in my heart as I was doing that. Second would be adjectives. There's some moments that were jarring
Mm.
to the earthquake.
Yeah.
the huge earthquake that struck the northern Japan area, and we had to evacuate. We really drove up the street 5 minutes to high ground, but like it was still kind of scary, and the whole town was like freaking out, and there were tsunami warnings, and everything was fine, but that was a little jarring for me.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Fulfilling, jarring. I can't think of a good adjective for this, but more spiritual awareness, maybe.
Cool.
I love that.
I don't know how you would turn that into an adjective, but
Good.
I started beginning to, as I was serving, like sense things
Uh-huh.
that I just needed to, like, Lord's helping me to be more intentional about praying or sensing, hey, this is some kind of battle here that we need to overcome.
Yeah.
And some kind of something that, like, you need to wear your armor in this situation, because there's so maybe dangerous is like spiritually serious. Maybe we'll just use that adjective. Yeah.
I love that.
Good.
No, I love that. Thanks.
How about you, Liz?
Growth, I think, is one. I don't even know if that's an adjective, but the place I was in, things grew incredibly fast. But I also think that the Lord was definitely working on my heart and growing me closer to Him and growing me in patience and love and just so many ways. So it's cool to look back 6 months to now and see that. Yeah. I think another one is friendships. I think getting to be in one spot for 6 months was such a cool blessing. And it was hard to say goodbye to those people. Again, I'm super thankful for technology because I can keep up with them. But yeah, I got to make some really good friends, which was really sweet. And then lastly, I think I don't know. I think like it made me look at the future differently. So like forward looking, or like just thinking about what I'm gonna do after. Whether it's missions again, or just praying about the future.
Cool.
Love that.
So you guys could have picked up and gone to another country on your own. You have contacts, you knew people, you were introduced to people. If somebody's thinking about trying to go stick their foot in the missions water, why should they sign up with an org like WorldVenture and go under a program like Pathfinders? What would you tell somebody? What's the value of going as a Pathfinder with WorldVenture as opposed to just going on your own?
I get to hang out with you guys.
Hang you under the table later.
But seriously, I like whether it's you guys are awesome, or another like coach, or I don't know, coordinator or whatever, someone who can like ask you questions and make you think about things. I think that was super helpful.
We make you think of adjectives, and we don't hold you accountable if it's an adjective or not.
Yeah.
What would you say, Sabrina?
I think I really appreciated the pre-field training, in that I think WorldVenture's strength is really good communication. I remember those first calls setting up with the Japan field side of WorldVenture and getting connected with ministries they thought would be specifically something that I would actually have a personal interest in doing and supporting the heart and everything. So like that was really special. It was like, oh, we're trying to tailor fit, like, you know, a special experience for you that is kind of answering specifically the call that God's put on your life, and we're trying to empower you to be able to, answer that call. And so I feel like WorldVenture did a good job of that.
Sweet. Thanks, girls.
That's awesome. We're gonna drop in the chat a little bit later a Pathfinder specific video that Brian and I did, so that if you're interested in Pathfinders out there, everybody, if you're interested in Pathfinders and what that means, there'll be a video in the link that you can click on as well, and just get a little bit more taste and understanding of what the Pathfinder program is all about.
And yeah, we'd love to encourage you to prayerfully consider that.
Yes.
There's a Go form on the website you can fill out if you have interest.
Yep.
The link that is there in the chat takes you to the Pathfinder page where you can learn more about it. As a Pathfinder, you go through an application process. We help you set up a budget. We take care of booking your airline tickets and your insurance. But then, as the girl said, we do 5 pre-field training sessions with everybody so that you feel like you're ready. We help you with your support raising and with culture and spiritual warfare and all these different topics to make sure that you're prepared as we can help you be to go. But again, the reason we do it is because we know that God wants to change your life. And as the girls shared, there's things that God showed them that they want to keep as a part of their life now that they're back, and they're both considering going back longer term. And what does that look like for them to go back to the field after this short-term experience? So we'd love to answer more questions for you. You can ask in the chat. You can follow the link there in the chat box about Pathfinders. And again, don't forget Sabrina's album,
Yes.
Resurrection. That's wherever you find your music. But Liz and Sabrina.
Liz, what you should do to keep up with Sabrina is put a recipe for snot in the chat.
There you go.
Okay, so what you do is you go find a palm tree, and then you cut it down the middle, and you scrape out the ends. No, I know that's the part, but.
So once again, girls, thank you so much for being
Yes,
willing
you
to do
guys.
this.
Thank you so
And Nikki's our guru in the back, making sure everything
is.
happens. So Nikki, thank you for organizing this.
This has been
And
awesome.
for those of you who joined us, we greatly appreciate you joining us for this
Thanks
time
for the conversation.
with our Pathfinder Reflection.